All right, it's time to talk about an Ohio State University. That's right, schedule preview up today for Ohio State. One of the most talked about teams of the offseason this year, like they are almost every year, honestly. Ohio State's been a championship and playoff contending team most years during the playoff era. They've had a lot of really good teams that were maybe one win or one win away, I guess you could say, from making the playoff, where a loss, one loss kind of kept them out. That was the situation last year. Of course, lost at home to Oregon early in the year, and then really steamrolled through the rest of their schedule, blowing out everybody they played. Well, I guess the Nebraska and the Penn State game were in single digits, but the rest of them were just massacres. Until that Michigan game, and of course, Ohio State did lose to Michigan for the first time since anybody can remember, knocking them out of the Big Ten title game and thus out of the playoffs. They finished up in the Rose Bowl. They played Utah in a close game there and got the win. But Ohio State was really good last year. They're going to be really good again next year. In today's video, we're going to take a look at their schedule, which I'll put up on the screen here in just a second, and see what their schedule looks like. But good morning. No, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou. And guess what? I'm live for you on YouTube today. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Also, in addition to that as well, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year, and sometimes they're even watchable. I don't know about this one. You can let me know in the comments down below. I'm doing a whole series of these schedule previews, running through a bunch of teams, just taking a look at the schedules. These are not prediction videos. I do prediction videos later in the year, usually starting in June. This time of year, I like to look at as many team schedules as I can and just, how's the non-con schedule? Is it really, really hard? Is it really, really easy? Is it some of both? What about the conference schedule? Where are the road games, home games? Do you have difficult games or opponents on the road, or do you get your toughest games at home? I mean, these are all things that kind of go into starting to formulate an opinion on a team in terms of what their record might be in a given year. Because let's face it, Ohio State, like a few other teams, has the talent really to go undefeated every single year. Obviously, they don't. No one goes undefeated every single year. It's easy to get tripped up back-to-back road games, rivalry games, trap games, whatever the case may be. So I like to take a look at team schedules this time of year, and it helps me start to get ready for my prediction videos that I do every year starting in June. I mentioned their record last year, of course, 11-2, losses to Oregon early in the season. Don't worry, Georgia will show you how to beat Oregon early in the season when they play them this year in week 1. So if you want to learn something about that, you can tune into the Georgia-Oregon game. Then you lost your rivalry game to Michigan at the end of the year before winning the Rose Bowl, 11-2. Not what Ohio State fans wanted, but still a really, really good year. What's coming up in 2022? Well, 3 Heisman candidates on offense to start with, right? C.J. Stroud at quarterback, Travion Henderson at running back, and NJIGBA-SMITH at wide receiver. But no one questions Ohio State's offense. I mean, Ohio State, the argument could be made that Ohio State had one of, if not the best offenses in college football last year. That wasn't the issue. Of course, it was their defense. And I don't think it's a talent issue. I mean, maybe they were lacking a little in a position or two, but Ohio State recruits in the top 5 almost every single year. They've got the talent. So was it coaching? Was it scheme? Was it philosophy? What was it? Well, they got rid of their defensive coordinator, brought in a new defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State. So they're looking to shake things up on the defensive side of the ball. So Ohio State recognizes where they need to improve, and they're doing everything they can to try to do that. If Ohio State's defense can play at an elite level this year, nobody will be surprised to see Ohio State in the playoffs. Let's take a look at their schedule, though, and see how easy or hard it's going to be for them to get there. Spring game coming up April 16th. That's just under 2 weeks from today. It's on a Saturday. The first game of the year, Notre Dame. Now, this is a big game here. This is a great game. There's been a lot of people talking about this game all offseason, and that's going to continue, I think, through the summer. These are two of the biggest and most recognizable brands in the world when it comes to college football, and they don't play very often. And so as a college football fan, I mean, yes, Georgia's my favorite team, but I'm a college football fan. I cannot wait to watch this game. And it's a home and home, too, which I love. I'm not a fan of neutral site games. I prefer college games be played on college campuses, as weird as that might sound. But this is a home and home. Notre Dame travels to Columbus, to the Horseshoe, to take on Ohio State. Man, this is a tough draw for Notre Dame out of the gate, isn't it? Brian Kelly left, went to LSU. They promoted their defensive coordinator to head coach, which is great. Everyone seems to like him. And, I'm not trying to say he's going to be an epic failure or some huge disaster, but the guy's never been a head coach before. This is a tough draw in your first game as a head coach to have to go into Columbus and take on Ohio State. I'm assuming Ohio State will be a favorite in this game, probably somewhere. I would put Ohio State at probably a 6 or 7 point favorite in that game if I was handicapping the game right now. I think Ohio State more talented than Notre Dame, and I like their proven coaching staff versus kind of the unknown of the new coach at Notre Dame. That's your first non-con game. Then your other two non-con games, Arkansas State and Toledo. Both these games are at home. That'll round out your non-con schedule. Of course, Big Ten plays 9 conference games, so that only leaves room for 3 non-conference games. And this is a pretty good non-conference schedule. I mean, you've got one big non-con Power 5 opponent in Notre Dame, and then you get a couple of kind of warm-up games before you get ready to jump in to the meat of your schedule in the Big Ten. Ohio State will be huge favorites against Arkansas State and Toledo at home. Week 4, your 4th home game in a row. 4 games, all home games. Your first Big Ten game of the season, and you host Wisconsin. Wisconsin had a down year last year. I don't know if that's the start of a trend or if it's just a blip on the radar, an anomaly. Wisconsin, generally speaking, wins 10 games in their sleep. That's not the problem. The problem for Wisconsin is the 11th game, the 12th game, the 13th game. They sort of have had a hard time getting over that hump from really, really good to elite status, right? A lot of that has been quarterback play and sort of an antiquated offense. Their defense is pretty good most years. I do think Wisconsin will be much better this year, better enough to win on the road at Ohio State, though. I don't know about that. I'm assuming Ohio State's going to be favored again in that one. Then you have another Big Ten game, October 1st, again at home. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First 5 games of the year at home for Ohio State. And this one's against Rutgers. Again, a game in which Ohio State should be a significant favorite. I know they got Greg Schiano back over there, and he had a little bit of success there 10, 15 years ago when he was there the first time before going off to the NFL. Rutgers a tough spot to win at, though. I don't mean playing at Rutgers. I mean Rutgers in general. Being the coach at Rutgers is a difficult task. That's a school that's not easy to win at. So Ohio State's got an opportunity here to really start hot. If they can get over, I mean, Notre Dame is really the biggest hurdle in their first 5 games of the year, all 5 of which are at home. It's very possible, maybe even realistic, to expect Ohio State to be 5-0 before they take their first road game of the year, October 8th, at Michigan State. Michigan State was pretty good last year. Can they continue that? That's the question, right? Every year you have a couple of teams who kind of come from nowhere. They vastly exceed expectations, and then the following year they sort of regress back to what they normally are. That's the question for Michigan State right now. They lose Kenneth Walker, that running back, which is really 90% of their offense last year. If you think about it, if you go back and watch those Michigan State games, it was just almost all Kenneth Walker. Can they replace that? Can they get better around the running back position so that they don't have to rely, on a running back to get them 90% of their yards and points and everything else? We'll see. I don't know if Michigan State can be as good again in 2022 as they were in 2021. You do have to play them there. I wouldn't characterize this as an easy win, but again, a game where Ohio State will probably be close to, if not a double-digit favorite. With a good chance to win, and you could go into your bye week 6-0. I don't see any worse than 4-2 though, and that would be shocking, really. I don't remember the last time Ohio State started 4-2. They haven't lost more than a couple of games in a season in what seems like forever. Pretty good spot for your bye week, pretty much right in the middle of the season. I mean, you play 6 games, you get your bye week, you play your last 6 games. Come out of your bye week, another home game, this time at Iowa. This is a good draw here because Iowa, clearly not on the level talent-wise as Ohio State, but playing at Iowa can be difficult. And we've seen better teams go to Iowa and lose. In fact, we see it almost every single year. So this is a benefit, I think. Not that you would lose just because you played them there, but obviously home field advantage is real. This is a benefit for Ohio State. In this game, you don't have to make that trip to Iowa. You should be favored in that one as well. On the road at Penn State. Penn State's a hard team for me to figure out this offseason, too. They were a little bit disappointing to me last year after starting, really hot. We'll see what they look like in 2022. Now, you do have to play them there. That's not going to be easy either. I mean, that's a difficult place to play. Ohio State has had Penn State's number recently. We'll see if that trend continues in 2022. I'm assuming, even though it's at Penn State, I bet you Ohio State will still be a favorite in that one as well. Back-to-back road games now at Penn State, then you turn right back around at Northwestern. They're in the lower half of the Big Ten, and that's kind of putting it nicely. This is a game that Ohio State would be expected to win for sure. You come back home, take on Indiana, probably the worst team in the Big Ten last year. I think they only had one conference win last year. I believe they were 1-8 in the Big Ten last year after having ridiculously high expectations last offseason that I spent a lot of time saying I didn't understand. I didn't understand the hype around Indiana heading into last season, and it turned out the hype was fake news. They were absolutely horrible. You get Indiana at home. They're not going to be as bad as they were last year, but they can't improve, or at least I don't think they'll improve to the point where they're beating an Ohio State. I would assume Ohio State would be a significant home favorite there. At Maryland, could be a tricky game in that it comes before the Michigan game. And, you're better than Maryland, and you'll probably win that game. But, people like to look for trap games or games that can sneak up on you. Maybe this one's it here. You're going to basically sleepwalk through that Indiana game and win by 40. Then you got to turn around and go on the road to a Maryland team whose record is probably going to be hovering around 500. It's going to be hard to really get up for that game, knowing, of course, you have the game the following week, Michigan, which you finish your regular season November 26th at home against the Wolverines. And this is going to be a huge game. Revenge factor, rivalry factor. It could be that this game once again determines who wins the Big Ten East and who plays in the Big Ten championship with a spot to the playoffs on the line. I mean, it could be that, this game is as big in 2022 as it was in 2021, where literally everything was up for grabs for both teams. They don't make them any bigger than this. Ohio State and Michigan, Alabama, Auburn. I mean, to me, those two games are on the top of the rivalry pyramid. It just doesn't get any bigger than this. I know Michigan beat Ohio State last year, but just being honest, if I had to pick that game right now, I'd pick Ohio State. I just think Ohio State's the better team. So that's the schedule. So recapping the non-con, a manageable non-con schedule. You got that Notre Dame game, but it is at home, and you catch Notre Dame in a year where they have a brand new head coach who's never been a head coach before. Couple that with the fact that, like I said, I just think you're way more talented. And then you play Arkansas State and Toledo, two group of 5 teams that you should have no problem with at all. And then, your Big Ten schedule. Wisconsin at home is a benefit, right? You get them at home. Camp Randall can be a difficult place to play. At Michigan State, potential for, maybe something there. Again, I think Ohio State's better. But if you're looking at difficult games, what's more difficult? Wisconsin at home or on the road at Michigan State? I don't know. I don't know. And then you have your bye week. I like where the bye week is. You come out of your bye week, get Iowa at home. I like that you have Iowa at home. At Penn State and at Northwestern, back-to-back road games. Of course, that Penn State game will be a big one. And then you finish up your season at Maryland and then Michigan. So if you're looking for a quote-unquote trap game on this schedule, I would circle the Maryland game. It doesn't mean I think Ohio State's going to lose. It's just, the definition of a trap game is a game that a team loses that they shouldn't lose because of where it falls on the schedule, right? This one is after Indiana, a snooze fest game, and before the Michigan game. It's kind of sandwiched there. It would be real easy to look past that game. Ohio State clearly way better, should get the win, and then you flip a coin in that Ohio State-Michigan game. Be a great one. There it is. That is Ohio State's 2022 college football schedule. Feel free to let me know down below what you think Ohio State's record will be in 2022. And if you have them losing some games, let me know which games is it that you think they might lose. Is it Michigan? Is it at Penn State? Let me know, too. What do you think's a more difficult game? Getting Wisconsin at home or having to play at Michigan State? Anyway, I appreciate y'all watching this video, and I'll see you again real soon. Have a good morning.